Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down one of the most influential and, controversial ideas in all of ethics, utilitarianism. It's this fascinating attempt to create an almost mathematical way to answer a huge question. How do we know what the right thing to do is?
So let's just dive right in with a classic. You've probably heard of it, the trolley problem. A trolley's out of control, it's about to hit 5 people, but you're next to a lever. You pull it and you can switch the trolley to another track, but there's one person on that track. So what's your move? Most people, their gut instinct is to pull the lever. I mean, saving 5 lives by sacrificing one just seems to add up, right? It feels like the best outcome.
But hold on, how do we actually make that call? Is it really just a gut feeling? Or is there some kind of logical, almost scientific way to figure out the right choice in a mess like that?
Well, back in the 18th century, a group of thinkers came up with a pretty radical new system for morality. Their idea was to build it on a simple, scientific-seeming principle. They wanted to take all the guesswork and fuzzy feelings out of ethics and just calculate the right answer. And that brings us to this guy, the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. He was obsessed with the idea of bringing mathematical precision to morality. He basically argued that every single choice we make, from what we eat for lunch to how a government should run a country, could be broken down and analyzed.
Okay, so the first big piece of this puzzle is an idea called consequentialism. And it's actually pretty simple, but it's a huge deal. It says that the morality of an action is judged only by its results. Your intentions don't matter. What matters is the outcome, the consequences. That's it.
And the second piece of the puzzle? Well, that defines what a good outcome even is. For Bentham, it was super simple: hedonism. He said the only thing that is truly fundamentally good is happiness, which he just saw as pleasure and the absence of pain. And the only thing that's fundamentally bad, pain. Simple as that.
All right, so now you put those two ideas together, consequentialism and hedonism, and boom, you get the absolute core of utilitarianism. An action is the right thing to do if, and only if, it produces the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. It's often called the greatest happiness principle.
And Bentham himself argued this principle should apply to everything. This wasn't just some personal philosophy for him. No, he saw it as a powerful tool to reform all of society. You could use it to look at any law, any institution, and ask one simple question: does this actually make people happier?
He even tried to make it practical by creating what he called the hedonic calculus. It's basically a 7-point checklist to measure the total amount of pleasure an action might create. You think about, how intense is the pleasure? How long will it last? How many people get to feel it? The idea was you could literally add it all up and get a score for happiness. Now, this is where things get really interesting and for some people, a little troubling. Bentham had this super strict view that all pleasures are equal. The simple joy a kid gets from a silly game could be just as morally valuable as the complex pleasure someone gets from listening to an incredible piece of music. The only thing that mattered was the amount of pleasure. And you can probably guess, this led to some major pushback. Critics totally slammed it, calling it a swine morality. They argued that this way of thinking reduces all the beautiful complexity of human life down to just the simple, animal-like search for basic pleasures, completely ignoring the things that make us human.
This is where Bentham's student, the brilliant John Stuart Mill, steps into the picture. He absolutely saw the power in utilitarianism, but he also knew it needed a serious upgrade to deal with this whole swine morality problem.
Mill's response was incredible. He famously argued that, look, some pleasures are just plain better than others. He called them higher pleasures, the joys of the intellect, of creativity, of love. He argued that the satisfaction you get from reading a great book or having a deep conversation was a superior kind of happiness.
So here you can really see the split. For Bentham, it was all about the numbers, a quantitative hedonism. But for Mill, it was about the quality. He introduced this game-changing idea that the kind of pleasure matters just as much as the amount, maybe even more.
Okay, so even with Mill's big upgrade, there was another massive question hanging over the theory. Should we be applying this greatest good idea to every single action we take, one by one? Or should we use it to come up with general rules for everyone to follow? And this debate basically created a fork in the road. On one side, you have act utilitarianism, which is closer to Bentham's original idea, where you judge every single situation on a case-by-case basis. On the other side, you have rule utilitarianism. This version argues it's way better to create and stick to general rules, like don't lie, don't steal, that over the long haul will produce the most happiness for society, even if breaking the rule in one specific case might look like a good idea.
So, where does all this leave utilitarianism today? Well, its core ideas have had a massive impact on everything from our legal systems to economics and public policy. But the theory itself is definitely not a settled debate.
I mean, despite its simple elegance, utilitarianism faces some really tough objections. It seems to say we should be totally impartial between our own family and complete strangers. It might force us to do things that go against our deepest personal beliefs. And here's the really troubling one for a lot of people. Could it actually justify violating one person's rights for the sake of the greater good?
And so, in the end, we're brought right back to where we started, with that trolley. Utilitarianism gives us this powerful, logical way to think about these problems, but it sure doesn't give us any easy answers. It just leaves us with that same incredibly difficult question. When, if ever, is it right to sacrifice one person for the good of many? Where do you draw the line?